Welcome to Healing Spaces, guys. My name is Jabu Zwane. As I did indicate, today we are going to be speaking about healing from imposter syndrome. Now, I did say that we're going to be doing a combination of monologues and interviews. Our first episode was actually a good friend of mine, Spirit, talking to me about what this podcast is all about and what is healing all about. And I'm doing a bit of follow-up, and I want to talk to this topic that is so important because so many of my clients, I have also personally suffered from this, and many people that I know also have suffered from this, and that is imposter syndrome. And the more and more work that I do around healing, I notice that imposter syndrome comes up a lot. But imposter syndrome has got different triggers for different people. Now, the first thing is, what is imposter syndrome? I mean, we speak about it from the point of it's this inability to feel validated. It is literally the distance between your proven achievements, your proven talents, your proven skills, and what you believe about yourself. Not what you believe about those things, but what you believe about yourself. Especially if you have difficulty feeling validated. And I'm using the word feeling validated on purpose because that is how at least I've experienced it, and that's what I've seen in many people. Somebody, for example, would be promoted, or maybe they win a championship, or maybe they get invited to be part of an important event. And then they, instead of seeing the proof that the work that they have done has brought them to that space, they look at themselves and they say, why me? How is it possible that I'm the one that has achieved this thing, that has been called for this promotion, that has been specifically invited for this special event? Because somewhere along the way, before that point, you have learned that you don't deserve certain things. There were some things in your life that were invalidated as far as your abilities, your skills, and in terms of what you deserve. Or there were moments where when you did achieve certain things, you did not get the validation that is needed. There were times where I would work at different companies. I would do extremely well. I'll get the promotion. And as soon as I get the promotion, there was this discomfort in me where I felt like I am going to be discovered to be a fraud. But I actually realized that it's not so much that I'm going to be discovered to be a fraud, but I'm going to be discovered to be this thing that I've feared that I am not all these years. I feared that I was not good enough because there were so many experiences in my upbringing that made me feel like I was not good enough. I feel like I did not deserve great things. I would look at all the other boys, all the other kids from well-off families. I came to Joburg, I would look at these Model C kids, I'd look at these richer kids that I was working with as a waiter, and I would look at them in admiration, and I would wish that I could be like them. When I started working, I would see these other guys that are doing extremely well, and I would wish that I could be that guy that has that nice car, that has that nice house, that has that nice job. I desired these things, but because of my upbringing, I did not think that I would ever get to that point. I can remember one time, I think I was about around age of 18 and a half after school, even wondering if I'll ever have a car. I was wondering if I'll ever even have a car. I was wondering if I'll ever even have a job. And so these thoughts that I've grown up with, where I was not the chosen one, I was not the most handsome one, I was not necessarily the one that was being preferred, even in terms of my upbringing. I came from a poor background. I had an issues where my father had bipolar that was playing itself out in manic ways, which basically means that he appeared, or people would call him crazy, especially in the township where I came from, and being associated with what's not popular, what's not acceptable, what is to be rejected. I honestly had grew up with an inability to see myself as someone deserving of good things. And it's important to remember what I'm saying. I had difficulty seeing myself as somebody who is deserving of things. And then I would start to downplay a lot of things. Now, when I went to school and I started to do well at school, I realized, oh my goodness, from sub A, position one, sub B, position one and two, I always like would alternate between one and two, all the way up to I got to matric. And matric, I had a bit of a struggle there because I started to slack quite a bit. But I saw intelligence and performing well at school not as something that proved my worth, but as something that I used to protect myself from the judgment of poverty, from the judgment of these psychosocial conditions I've explained, which were embarrassing and shaming to me. You can imagine going to school, old clothes, torn clothes, dirty clothes, many years going to school without any shoes, and poverty plays a big role in terms of sort of stripping you off of that dignity and making you feel invalidated as a person. I keep on saying the word validate because it's so important to get that word, because it's a crucial part of understanding what imposter syndrome is. All right. So when I come to Joburg and I start to work, I start to do extremely well, people start to compliment me, I started becoming very uncomfortable with compliments, although I desire to be complimented. Let me be very honest. I needed it. But whenever compliments landed on my ears, into my mind, and into my nervous system, I would have this awkward feeling where I felt like people could just be quiet and not say anything. And so I learned then a few things, or at least I now understand a few things which I didn't quite understand then. But now that I've been doing this work of counseling for almost 20 years, of coaching now for about 6-7 years, of being a lead in the church environment for about 20 something years, working with people at multiple levels, I am learning the following. I'm learning that when you grow up without being validated, it's almost as though your brain doesn't learn how to feel validated. For some of you that may or may not know this, right? You may not know that the brain's function, one of the main functions, is to keep you safe, to keep you alive, which means it'll dedicate quite a lot of its time keeping you safe. The reason why they say that an average person thinks 4 negative thoughts out of 5. So out of every 5 thoughts, 4 of those thoughts are negative. It's not so much that the thoughts are negative, but it is the fact that your brain, being the center of your intelligence, dedicates the biggest portion of its work towards keeping you safe. And as a result, it's always scanning for danger. Therefore, it scans for negativity. Therefore, negativity grabs the attention of your brain much faster than things which are positive. As a matter of fact, think about it this way. Most people do not know that they are safe until they are unsafe. Or at least most people don't know to what degree they are safe until unsafety is introduced into their environment or into their experiences. As a matter of fact, most people don't know how well they have it until something takes away whatever it is that they have, right? And in other words, your brain is not actively going around looking for things to be grateful for, looking for things to be excited about. So these negative experiences then that you grow up with, where you are, say that you've been abandoned by your parents, or you have parents that are present but not present in physical body, but not present psychologically, not present emotionally. That you would come home with a report card where you've done well at school, and you say, "Hey, I've got 98%," and your parent says, "How come you did not get 100%?" So that moment that should have been a euphoric moment of validation is no longer becoming a moment of validation, but it becomes a stress point. I want you to stay with me for a second. What we need to understand is when we achieve things and we get celebrated, that celebration is a validation of our worth, of our abilities, and that's how we become confident. But when you have done well and you have done and observed everything that needed to be observed, or you've not done anything well or wrong, especially if you've done everything right. Instead of getting the compliment and you get criticism, instead of getting validation that you really have lived according to what is right, you get invalidation. That invalidation starts to cause confusion to the brain. And the confusion, unfortunately, also puts the brain into that state of saying, hey, there's something unsafe happening. It gets even worse if it's not just invalidation, but it's also criticism. It's also threats. If you have received negative attention about your looks, negative attention about the way you speak, negative attention about your poverty, about your background, about your race. I mean, black people have got imposter syndrome for different reasons that white people have imposter syndrome. For a lot of black people, we don't realize that actually imposter syndrome, part of what triggers our imposter syndrome or what has conditioned our imposter syndrome is our race. The fact that globally we are seen to be inferior, we're seen to be not good enough, we're seen to be not as smart as everybody else, not as beautiful or as handsome as everybody else, not as deserving of as good things as everybody else. And this is not happening at a macro level as at a race level. And so when you then get into these spaces where you are being seen for what you can do and you're being recognized for what you can do, there is that contrast in your experiences as a person and what is being said to you in terms of complimenting you, in terms of acknowledging you, in terms of celebrating you, because your brain has not learned to celebrate you, or unfortunately has learned that whenever you have attention is negative. Attention is going to lead to you being criticized, being insulted, being dismissed, being invalidated. Then those moments that are supposed to be celebration, they become stressful moments. And instead of your brain producing dopamine as a reward chemical, endorphins as good feel-good chemicals, serotonin as a calm and controlling yourself chemical, it produces stress. It produces cortisol. It produces adrenaline. It produces glutamate. It produces all of these negative stress chemicals. So whenever you are then attention is on you, your brain perceives every kind of attention as negative. Think about it this way. If you have been bitten by a dog as a child, that child sees a dog, any dog, as something that could potentially harm them, bite them. All right? It's one of the reasons why we are afraid of snakes as people, is that we know that there are deadly and poisonous snakes. So we don't always have the time to try and figure out which snake is dangerous. Our brain immediately says that anything that looks like a snake is potentially dangerous. So that's why when we see a snake, no matter if the snake is not poisonous and it is not aggressive, we immediately go into the flight mode because we're seeing that as danger. Typically, then, that's what happens with the person that has imposter syndrome. Person that has imposter syndrome sees attention as a potential trap for criticism, for invalidation, for shaming, fears that they're going to be discovered to be lacking the same way that they were conditioned to believe about themselves growing up. So, in other words, if you are this child that has gone through what I've explained now, if you didn't grow up, for example, with your parents, especially your father, right, then you feel invalidated because you're wondering to yourself, how come my parents, how come my mother, how come my father could not stay? So there is this inability, or at least this gap in your mind where you struggle to feel worthy of love because the two people or the one person in your life that had every biological, psychological, spiritual, emotional reason, divine reason, DNA reason to love you did not love you, to stay for you did not stay for you. And it doesn't matter, by the way, it doesn't matter that you were raised by your grandparents, like many of us were in this country of South Africa and other parts of the world. It doesn't matter that you had an aunt or an uncle that loved you more than anything, that they've done all of those things. But because those people are not your biological parents, the gap in your psychology is that they who were supposed to be there for you did not stay there for you. So that invalidates you. So there are multiple reasons, there are multiple things that can trigger your imposter syndrome, and you need to be able to understand what those are. You need to be able to understand what those are. And I think what I want to expand on a little bit is the fact that one of the challenges with this, that I'm talking about, is that when a child grows up also in this environment of invalidation and of negative attention, when they're older, or rather, sorry, they long to be validated. They long to be told that they're worthy. They long to feel that. So maybe you discover that you are smart, and then you start to do well at school, and you use your intelligence not as something to achieve, like I was saying earlier on, not as something to use to achieve success, but actually to protect yourself from negative attention. You want to say that you're using your performance to say, I am not a problem. Maybe you were made to feel like you're a burden. You're trying to use your success and your achievements at school, as in sports, in extramural activities at school, maybe art, to say, I am not the problem. So anywhere and everywhere you go, you show up through performing. You show up through overperformance. You show up through saying, look at me, I am not the problem. You don't have to criticize me. You don't have to judge me. And that's why when you are older and then you actually achieve these things and now you get the right attention, you fear that they will discover the thing that you feared that you are, or at least that we're told you are. I hope that makes sense. And so to overcome imposter syndrome, we need to then be able to see what happened to us. What happened to us when we were growing up? Okay. What happened to us is that we're learning that exposure is harmful, attention is harmful. We learned that our existence is problematic. We learned that our struggles don't matter, especially where you didn't have space where you could go and complain and cry and have a voice about your struggles. You learned that, like, literally, by and large, your existence is not the most comfortable thing for everybody else. And therefore, you have to find a way to mold yourself to become likable, in order so that you can be accepted, so that you will not be judged, so that you will not feel the pain of judgment and rejection. So you are actually avoiding. It's part of, as far as I'm concerned, an avoidant behavior. And avoidant are people who are trying to avoid a certain experience, emotional, psychological, mental, and physical experience. And they don't want to go through that, especially now that you are older and then you can make your own choices. You are using your free volition, your volition and your power as an adult to avoid experiencing certain experiences, right? To avoid experiencing certain experiences. So imposter syndrome, by and large, is exactly that. It's this feeling of I cannot feel certain things in my brain because maybe, in my thoughts, what I'm thinking here is that I have this theory that your brain has an inability or struggles to produce positive feel-good chemicals from positive feel-good experiences because maybe because of not having gone through a lot of positive experiences in your upbringing. It's almost like your brain is not in practice and it struggles to produce these things. So every time you achieve, you don't reach that pinnacle point, that point of validation. It drops just as you are reaching there, and then you fall back down to the ground again. That's why when you get to the top, after you've reached the top, immediately you're looking for something else, and the excitement of achievement doesn't last as long in you as it would in someone that was raised with validation, that was raised with praise, that was raised with being celebrated, where your brain learned that attention can be positive, compliments are positive, they're not a setup for a drop. That doing good is not something you use to protect yourself, but it's actually something you do to contribute to the environment positively. And I think I want to touch on to that point a little bit, is that that's one of the things I noticed a lot even with me, is that I noticed that I dependent on doing good so much, not as a way of contributing, guys, but I just didn't want to be in trouble or to be seen to be a burden or to be seen to be this undesirable thing that I was conditioned to believe that I was. I struggled because of being called ugly a lot growing up. So I still struggle even today to see myself as, or to respond to the description of handsome. I struggle a lot to respond to a lot of these positive things that I'm currently experiencing. So how do you overcome this? The first thing, guys, you got to overcome is to be aware. You've got to be aware that you do have a struggle with feeling validated. Number two, is understand where it comes from. Is it because you grew up as a young girl, African girl, in a poor environment, and then you didn't even imagine that one day you'll be where you are today? That where you are today is so far different from where you come from that you cannot be able to reconcile the two realities. The reason why you cannot reconcile the two realities is because your small child, the inner child, the baby, the inner child in you, is still in awe of your life, is still looking at everything you're achieving in awe, rather than processing it from who the inner child has become, who this young child that has overcome a lot has become. And you have difficulty as a result to have admiration for you as a person, because again, to admire yourself and to acknowledge that you are this person that you are today, your brain is saying if you do that, you're going to discover that you are not that, or at least they're going to discover that you are not that. Therefore, don't even acknowledge that. Or is it that we grew up quite poor? Or is it that you grew up without a parents who were present and validating? Or did you grow up with criticizing parents? Did you grow up in a critical environment? What is it that you didn't meet as a standard? Is it a standard of beauty? Is it a standard of intelligence? Is it a standard of worthiness and deservedness? Were you the least favorite cousin? Were you the least favorite sibling? Were you the one that did not get as much attention from the parents as the rest of them? You know, there are different reasons why different people have imposter syndrome. The elder sibling will have imposter syndrome because of this perfection that they're trying to reach, growing up being told or being conditioned to think that they should know everything, to parentify, to be deputy parent, and to getting in trouble for things that they did not know and that they did not do. And as a result, you have this image of a perfect child, a perfect being that you're supposed to live up to, except you keep on falling short. Even as you're growing up, you kept falling short of it because you're always getting in trouble for things that you didn't know, that you did wrong. And then your brain learns, don't ever settle in being sure about anything that you're doing that's positive, because it's very possible that you have missed something. And that's one of the reasons why many people with imposter syndromes are always worried that they're going to be discovered to be frauds. They're going to be discovered to be that thing that they're told that they are, or that thing that they were told that they will never be. And now that the environment you're in is saying, but you are that, you are smart, you are good, you are deserving, you are successful, you are influential, you are important. Your brain is like, no, don't agree with that, because you are going to set yourself up for disappointment. And when they find out, you want to be super embarrassed, and we don't want to feel embarrassed. Now, this conversation I'm having with you is from multiple conversations I've had with myself, that I've had with my clients, and that I've had with many, many different friends. Does it resonate with you? And if it did resonate with you, please tell me what did stand out for you. I'm going to close up with this. Okay, so I said, first of all, be aware. Secondly, I said, understand what is the source of it. Thirdly, it's important for you to start to collect a portfolio of evidence on yourself, evidence that you can rehearse over and over and over again. Thirdly, I want you to sit down, not only collect evidence, but I want you to sit down and say, okay, what have I achieved? All right. What have I overcome as a person? There. And actually, if you were to look at your life right now as a third party, and you would write an autobiography or a biography about your life, what are some of the things that you would say as far as your strengths, as far as your talents, as far as your skills, as far as everything that is good about you? What are some of those things? So you're going to take what you've achieved, what you've overcome, who you are, and in terms of what you've observed, and we're going to rehearse that. You're going to look at that and study that as much as you can. And then you're going to develop a creed about who you are from that. All right. One of the statements you've heard as I was opening with this session, I said, with this podcast, I would love to help people to heal, to be restored, to transform, to grow, and to thrive. Because I've come to understand that that's who I am. That it is something that is endowed in me, that whenever people have interaction with me, healing, restoration, transformation, growth, and thriving happens. And by the way, this is something that I personally feel as well. But I've also certain things that I've got to, that I rehearse about myself. That because of the space that I am in, I am a good communicator. I plan on being one, I work on being one, and I'm comfortable being one. I don't always censor myself like I used to. One of the third things that I do is that I'm learning to be intentionally comfortable with compliments. If somebody compliments me, I have overcome that thing where I try to shift back the compliment with them. Somebody says to me, you look amazing, and I start saying, okay, your shoes are also amazing. Or somebody says, oh, that was amazing that you did, and I'll say, anybody could have done it, don't worry, it's nothing. I just simply say, thank you very much, I really do appreciate it. In some instances, I'll say, yeah, we worked extremely hard to get to that point. I'm really glad that could help you, and I'm really glad that could minister to you. And I would repeat the intended goals with what I do with people. I'll say, I'm so glad that what I said could heal you, because that's what I intend to do. I'm so glad to hear transformation in your feedback, because it tells me that I am doing the right thing. Or I'm so happy that you are thriving, because ultimately that's what I desire that people would experience with this conversation. So I am owning my talents, my gifts, my impact, my influence, my achievements, and my purpose as well. And this is so important as a closing thought, that if you're going to overcome imposter syndrome, it is important to find your purpose. And one of the ways you do that is that pay attention to the things people have been saying they're receiving from you. What are some of the things that you do so well and so easily that for you it feels like nothing, but people marvel at it and clap hands, and then your brain is like, but that's nothing. How come everybody's so excited about that? And your brain wants to say that they're pretending. It cannot really be that big, and this happens over and over again. Those kind of experiences, contrasted with your inability to embrace and enjoy that moment, is pointing you to the fact that that could be a purpose. What is that? What is that purpose? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I am also very, very grateful that you could listen. So please don't forget to subscribe, Please don't forget to share your comments and let me know what it is that was standing out the most. And with all of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited, and I'll see you on our next episode of Healing Spaces, where you will be healed, restored, you will grow, you'll transform, and you also will be thriving.